And it is true. I mean, basically, if we look at it at a fundamental level, slang exists because we believe at a core level that the previous words we've used don't reference our new emotional understanding. So basically what we're saying is it's not your papa's words anymore, and we need to invent words. And to a certain extent, slang is generational.
I got that.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly so. And so if we get to a situation where what we're actually kind of trying to do is to ride the slang wave. Slang falls into the category of words that we call immediacy values. Slang, for instance, wants to express an emotion now. It's a quick, usually a shortening. Rarely do you see slang extend out into longer words to reference the same emotional parameters. And as a result of which, the emotions that are being expressed fall, as we say, within the immediacy values, and so we put a peg on them that says that, well, they're trying to express something that'll have a duration of only 3 days and maximally up to 3 weeks. They're not intended to have slang words usually are not intended to have the full-on change your life forever kind of emotional impact that, for instance, legal language might. Legal language has a long impact on your life if you ever get embroiled in any kind of legal issues. So slang at one end, legal at the other. And you kind of get an idea of where we're headed. Legal terms, for instance, are in our long-term value set. And we divide the values into immediacy values, which are good for 3 weeks, or 3 days up to 3 weeks inclusive. And then shorter term, which is the 4th week through the 3rd month inclusive. And then longer term values, which is from the 4th month onward. But we lose granularity at about 19 months. Language apparently doesn't have many long-term, high-duration, high-impact emotional words that go out that far.
What do you mean by granularity?
When we go on out and we hunt records here, we might get, say, 90 million reads, we call them, where we find a group of keywords or a word relationship that we're after. And it'll bring back words on either side of that, and that's a read. And we'll get maybe 90 million or so of them over the course of doing one of our data runs. And they'll have a tendency to cluster themselves within our model space about certain time frames. So we'll get a whole lot of data that's relative to the immediacy. So we'll get a big bulge, if you will, of data. And it's like the way our model space is set up, each pixel represents a hot word with a good level of duration and intensity and so on. And we get a lot more of those and thus have more granularity in the earlier part of the process. Our longer term stuff, we don't get as many detail hints, if you will. The archetypes are broader, a little bit vague, and not well populated. And as we get closer to an event time, the population of that particular event structure becomes denser. There are more words populating it, and its granularity level rises. I sure hope that made sense.
That makes very good sense, I think.
And it sounds like this is a lot of fun.
Well,
I mean work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's exciting, let's put it that way. I don't know if I would apply the term fun to it. Fun for me is, playing on the mat or shooting arrows or something or working on the boat. This is a whole lot of work, and we've been doing it for a number of years, so it's starting to shade into getting a bit tedious in my view. But it is still very exciting because you're always finding new clusters, and you think, what's going on there? And, do I have that right? And there's a lot of risk involved in the sense that a small tweak sends all kinds of ripples through the whole system, and so you have to be very careful, and frequently we screw it up, and we've been doing less screw-ups as we go along, so we're getting more accurate and getting less false positives, if you will.
And we'll talk about some examples of that accuracy when we return from this break. So you are listening to Clif at halfpasthuman.com, and we'll be back. Okay.
Go. Oh, it's me. Oh, that's right. We have Beyond the Ordinary Clif with us from halfpasthuman.com. Cliff, what servers are you searching? Is it just in the United States? Is it also in other countries? Or?
We work in a number of different alphabets. So, Cyrillic, Greek, Arabic, Hindi, a number of forms of Pali, a bunch of different formats. So it's not just English. We started off with English and rapidly grew along with the Internet. At the time that I started off, I think maybe 85% of all Internet traffic was U.S. origin. Now, of course, it's reversed, and we're about 15% of total Internet traffic, so we're scrambling to keep up with the new languages as they come on. It's very tedious, though, because not being native speakers, it takes a while to get emotional nuance in a language you're just not familiar with.
Right. So so the predictions are coming from a global
perspective.
Okay.
The only continent, in fact, we actually have had contact from Antarctica. We don't routinely search any servers that are located there, but some of our data inadvertently has come from there occasionally. So we can say that basically we get content from all the continents, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Okay, before we go to some examples, you offer something else, and this is probably your income, huh? The Alta reports?
That actually is our primary report. The Alta report is asymmetric language trend analysis, which is the output of all of our bot work. So these are the reports we prepare that have all of our predictions in them. And we have the way we're organized here is that I sell some software that most people really don't want, but if you're a computer programmer and you're a serious geek and you know how to handle macros and stuff, it'll allow you to easily read at up to 2,000 words per minute from computer screens. So you can plow through all kinds of stuff, and you have a higher level of retention. One of my first software patents was on this product called Vortex. And we sell that for like $30, but I don't have the time to provide support for it, so unless you're a very experienced computer user, you probably want to stay away from it. You need to write macros and do this kind of thing to populate it with the text you want to read, because I'm not going to spend my time writing file interface programs for it. So,
Clif, you give a lot of warnings. On the Alta report, you say, like for instance, it's 280, and you get everything. Is just amazing. But then you say for returning subscribers, you've dropped the price to $70.
That's correct.
Because you want to free up the funds so that they can go out and seek
do stuff.
help.
Yeah, there you go. And basically what we want is we want a high enough barrier to entry that unless the money is pocket lint, you're going to really think about it. If you're on Social Security, I don't want your money. If you're on a fixed income of any sort, I don't want your money. You don't need to be spending it this way. So we put a high barrier to entry to this to just get those people that were at a high enough level of income that they would not consider it to be depriving them of something else. I mean, there's karmic implications to all of this. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So fundamentally what we do is we charge $280 for the first time you come into the series. And if you're not totally scared away, the next time you come on in, because your brain's probably been shattered by reading the first one, we charge you less because you're going to need more money for meds and psychiatric care. I kid you not. I put warnings out there, and I'm not, we can laugh about it, but and it's humorous, but it's also very serious. It's kind of the paradigm-changing sort of thing that you may encounter, that kind of crack in your worldview, and that sort of can lead to cognitive dissonance.
It can. It could also straighten up a lot of neuronal networks, too.
It could, and that's up to universe. And so, basically I'm just kind of providing myself a little karmic disclaimer there saying, any of your issues with reality are your problems. We didn't cause them. We just told you about them.
Well, laughter is the spoonful of sugar around here, because we can be talking about, everything's going down the tubes here and things really suck. But you know what? This is a beautiful planet, and with a little good thinking, you could change your own reality to it. So, don't get gloomy about it.
But you also have to understand that the nature of our work, because, at its fundamental core, the assignment of emotional values to particular elements of language is a guess, but it also has a tendency, in order to be able to work it, you have to set out and find extremes and gradually narrow in on nuance. So we have a tendency to live at extremes, and in the past few years, the extremes have all shaded towards dark, and we see very little in the way of an extreme language set that goes towards anything that's, light and happy. So just my nature is altered by the work I do simply because I spend so much time, over my head in very dark topics.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of burned it out to a certain extent because I have a very good world view about it all, and I've adopted the axiom that all things are a challenge. To ordinary people, everything is either a curse or a blessing, but once you reach a certain level of awareness, those terms are meaningless, and it's merely what challenge, because there's good challenges and bad challenges, and nonetheless, it's all work. Sort of makes sense?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In case people missed it, when I made the reference to what your model space suggested for 2008, the control freaks are the ones that are becoming very, very out front and evident. They go by many names: the cabal, the Illuminati, the Republicans,
the
the Democrats,
the banks, the religions,
yeah,
the central bank.
And they're all twitchy these days, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
their strings are wound tight.
And you mentioned something interesting in that, is that it's that almost desperation drive to keep control.
It's not almost. It is actual.
Desperation?
Correct. There's especially if you get into the R level of it, when you start dealing with the linguistics involved, the desperation is a very core key subset of the fear groups, which is related to frustration and constraint, restraint, and so on. And the more we see the constraint and restraint words showing up relative to what we've titled the powers that be, the tighter everybody's springs are getting wound, and the more it's becoming visible. We use visible in a very specific context here, where we say when it's visible, it's actually showing up in the language that we could all encounter out and about, either on the internet or on the global media stream or mainstream news or talking to your friends. So we'll find out that some words are going to start popping up and some concepts are going to pop up years before they actually appear. And then finally we get around and we say, okay, pay attention. 3 months from now there's going to be X show up. And pretty soon everybody starts looking, and all around them they see X. Now, a certain component of this is due to sensitization. You buy a Volkswagen Bug, and everywhere you just suddenly start seeing Volkswagen Bugs everywhere, and you never really noticed there were that many of them. And it just has to do with the patterns in your own mind. But on the other hand, when we do get to some of these languages and this kind of stuff, it can be spectacular. So we have this sort of running thread, which to a certain extent annoys people, about pies. I'm a pie baker. I like baking bread and pies, and I'm particularly enamored with all different kinds of fruit pies. And so I brought it into the conversation in our report.